So when my nephew was very young, probably about 4, I think, and he was riding around with my mom, and she was a real estate agent at the time. And she was in a neighborhood with extraordinary houses, you know, the jaw-dropping kind of houses. And, you know, as a realtor, you go to those places. And she happened to have her grandson with her, my nephew, and she was driving along, and Jeremy was looking at the houses one by one as they went by. And my mom could see he was very fascinated. And she said, "Jeremy, you need to know these people are no happier than we are." And Jeremy said, "Why?" Why wouldn't you be more happy? I mean, look at these, you know. And even a 4-year-old could tell that was another level, you know, that was another level. And, you know, my mom was trying to impart into him some humble Christian values, but he was thinking more honestly, like, you know, looks pretty good to me. In this chapter today, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, the author Solomon is saying, look, it's kind of like, the tone of it is kind of like this. Look, to save you the time of having to go through everything I did, I'm going to tell you what went on, and what happened to me, and maybe you can learn a little bit and not have to go through all this yourself. That's kind of the tone of it. Like, I'll tell you where I was and what I did, and maybe you can, you know, maybe the reader can relate to this and go, oh yeah. So he talks about being in the position where he could have anything he wanted, and he followed the desires of his heart. He had material blessings, wealth, gold, all the wealth he could imagine. He had all the servants he could imagine. He had tells of building ponds and extravagant landscapes, and well, we know about you know, the temple of the Lord that Solomon built, and we know about the palace of the king. And so he was a builder. He was a developer. He did a ton of stuff. He accomplished and had more satisfaction is the wrong word. He accomplished more than, he said, anyone before him. And he became, verse 9, he says, I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem, and my wisdom also stood by me. So he said, I was on the ladder. Not only was I on the ladder, I got to the top of the ladder. There was nothing I denied myself. Any kind of pleasure, any kind of material possession. I could have it all. All of that, I did not refuse them. I did not restrain my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor. My heart was pleased because of all that I had accomplished. Like, he looked around and said, I did it. And he said it pleased him for about 10 minutes. That doesn't actually say that. But very quickly, you're going to see something change. You're going to hear something change. For a little bit, he was like, and it pleased me. And, you know, to be honest, some of the things under the sun that happen to us are pleasing. You know, ice cream tastes good all the time, everywhere. Never changes. It's reliable. You know, the stock market's up, you go, hey, stock market's up, let's go have ice cream. Stock market's down, you go, oh, stop, let's go have ice cream. You know, either way, ice cream wins. So some of the things under the sun are enjoyable up to a level, up to a certain point. And he said, I was pleased because of my labor, and this is the reward for all my labor. I considered all my activities with my hands. Here it goes. Here are my hands and done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was, there's that word, chevel, futility, striving after the wind, and there was no benefit under the sun. It's the agony of success. When you're like, now what? You know, you win the Super Bowl. Wow! Now what? Nobody will remember that in a few years. What team even won the Super Bowl 2 years ago? Some of you know it, probably. 2 years ago, Chiefs, all done. 5 years ago, who won the Super Bowl? Who cares? Who cares? Dave says, I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Browns. Yeah. So, you know, after it's the agony of success, because even though you've got to the top, it's just is like, well, now what? Do you remember the movie Chariots of Fire? One of my favorites. And it's the story of Harold Abrams in the Olympics, and the story of Eric Little, the other guy, and the two ways they approached their races in the Olympics. And for Abrams, it was everything. If I win this, my life will have meaning. My life will have purpose. And for Little, it was like, I want to honor God in what I do. We'll see what happens. And the irony of it is, you know, they both win a race, but Abrams is sad afterward. He's like, oh, everything I thought this was going to provide meaning, and I can see now it doesn't. The agony of success. And so Solomon is like, for what? Because the thing that keeps coming, and it keeps coming out through the book as a loop, is that whether you're wise or whether you're a fool or whether you're successful or whether you're a loser, everybody in the end goes to the same end. The same end. The grave awaits us all. And he says, it's funny, kind of in verse 15, he kind of says it kind of sarcastically. I said to myself, as the fate of the fool, so it will happen to me. Why have I even been wise? Like, I worked so hard to stay wise and, you know, stay on the, you know, to like do things right. I wanted to get things right. Why? Doesn't make any difference. I'm going to die like everybody else. And so this idea of mortality keeps trivializing all his accomplishments. He's like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. This too is futility. It's that sense of it slipping through your fingers. I can't hang on to anything. Even that moment of glory when he crosses the finish line and wins, you can't freeze time there and live in that frozen moment of you crossing the finish line, or the moment when he gets the gold medal. You can't freeze that time. The time marches on, and even the high points become in the rearview mirror very quickly. Have you ever been on vacation? Let's say it's a week-long vacation. And day 1, 2, and 3, you're like, yeah, we're on vacation. We're in North Carolina. You know, we're at the beach, wherever we are. I love this. We got this great Airbnb. Oh, this is wonderful. And then you find yourself like days 1, 2, and 3, you're just enjoying it. And then this little thought keeps coming into you on day 4. And you go, well, there's only 3 days left. No, it's so short. There's only 3 days. There's only 3 days left. And then you start measuring time, and you start saying, I'm going to have to go back and catch up on that. I'm going to have to, you know, my voicemail is going to be like, well, you start thinking. And the last 3 days of your vacation, you end up wasting because you're so worried about losing your vacation. You waste the days that you had, you waste because you're so worried about it slipping away. Yes, it will slip away. You can't control the future. You can only control how you decide to respond to the day, to each day, as a gift or as a disappointment. Why have I been extremely wise? So he ends up, verse 17, I hated life. I hated life for all the work which had been done. And then verse 18, I hated all the fruit of my labor because it doesn't accomplish anything. See, in the end, we don't really want stuff, and we don't really want status or accomplishment. We want what theologians call transcendence, something out beyond this life. And as Augustine said, thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until we find our rest in thee. So what you have here is a man under the sun, restless, because nothing under the sun will stop the anxiety, the drive, the frustration. Nothing will stop that. So, and it really bothers him that he's going to have to hand over to his descendants all this stuff that they didn't earn, and they may not even want the stuff. I hear stories of parents with houses full of stuff, and they think, well, I'm going to leave all these treasures to my children, and they will cherish them. And they find out the children's houses are full of their own treasures, and they don't really want mom and dad's treasures. And all that stuff you were storing for all those years ends up at the Goodwill. And someone else moves it to their house and stores it until they give it to their children or the Goodwill. Stuff. All his days, verse 23, all his days or activity is painful and irritating. Even at night his mind does not rest. Not rest. Does not rest. Can't rest. Can't rest. This too is pointless. Slipping away. So he was like upbeat, and then he goes through this real pessimistic side, this like, what's the point? And then it ends though, it goes back the other way, but not in the same way, in a different way. It's like up until now, he's talking about life under the sun, like a two-dimensional life. Me and my stuff, me and my stuff, me and my stuff. And then God enters the picture in this last paragraph, and it moves from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. And it seems to change everything. Can money buy happiness? I would say yes. If you define happiness as a short-term sense of comfort or relief. Let's be honest, it can. In fact, there was a study done in 2010. It was updated in 2023. It was about the sociologists were researching whether or not money actually makes people happier. Like does more money make people happier? And what they found out was through multiple studies and thousands of people being interviewed and all this, they consolidated all the data, and they said people do tend to feel happier when they have greater income, but only up to a point. If you don't have enough to pay your basic bills, if you're worried about your mortgage, if you're worried about putting gas in the car, and whether you have to not take that trip, if you're worried about food and clothing and shelter, like Maslow's hierarchy, if you're worried about those things, then yes, having more money reduces stress and anxiety. And it said basically, money does a good job of taking away negatives, but it does a crappy job of giving you positives. All it can do is remove some of the pain, but it can't go much further than that. They said once you get above like a basic standard of living where your basic needs are covered, you're not worried about how to pay next month's things. You can take an annual vacation. You're not unstable. Once you get to that point, hey folks, that's it. You're not going to get any happier than that. They studied it and they said more and more money doesn't really do anything. The people are not happier. They might be a little happier, but they're no more, what do we say? Joyful. Because joy comes through transcendence, through something bigger than this life. Happiness, you can buy a little bit of that. But it doesn't satisfy. And here's why. They actually published kind of a summary, and this is what they said. Here's why it doesn't actually help you feel better. Because there's diminishing returns. So a nicer, bigger car, that feels good at first, but soon it becomes the new norm. And then it no longer feels cool anymore. It just feels like, that's my car. And the first day you had it, every car on the road, the first day it was bought, was cherished by somebody. Every car in a junkyard was at one day somebody pined over it and hoped they could afford it and stretched and made the payment. They took it home and showed their friend. Every car in the junkyard was like that. And the problem is, once you have that thing, it feels, how much you wash your car in the first few months? Doesn't keep going though, does it? You get tired of it. It seems normal. Adaptation. Humans quickly adapt to improved circumstances. Your expectations tend to rise with your income. What used to feel like luxury becomes routine. So, staying at the Hampton Inn used to be like, woohoo, staying at the Hampton Inn. And then eventually he's like, yeah, staying at the Hampton Inn. It's just how we are. We get tired of stuff. Why? Because this stuff doesn't really satisfy. It amuses us, but it doesn't satisfy. And then social comparison never stops. It just gets bigger. And the more stuff you have, the more you compare with other people. That's why the athletes will sign a $7 million contract and feel like they're on the top of the world until somebody else signs a $9 million contract, and then I've been cheated, because comparing yourself to others, you feel like you didn't get what you were worth. You have more income, you have longer hours, more responsibility, less free time, and pressure not to lose it. So the more you have, the more pressure you have to hang on to the things and not lose them. So you don't even sleep well at night. And then it summarizes by this. Research consistently shows that long-term happiness heavily depends on these things. Number one, relationships. Like relationships that are functional and supportive. Two, having meaning or purpose, which cannot be acquired with more stuff. Control over your time. This is interesting. If people feel like they don't have control of their schedule and they're up from morning to night running a schedule outside of like what they want to do, and they're controlled by that schedule, no matter how much money they have, they're miserable. Something about being able to control your schedule really helps. Physical and mental health. And then money helps in only relieving stress, but it cannot create deep relationships or meaning. It cannot create meaning. So richer people might be a little bit happier, but they have no more meaning or purpose than the poor man. Now we know this, but we'd sort of like to try the money side just to make sure it doesn't provide satisfaction, It's like, Lord, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work, but can we just try it? And I'll be the first to admit when it doesn't work. Solomon is saying, believe me, I tried it. And it wasn't it. So then what is there? There's nothing better for a person to eat and drink. By the way, I don't have the picture here of somebody sitting alone in a room eating and drinking. Don't you get the sense it's like shared with people? It's a table, it's people, it's family, it's the eating and drinking with people and showing himself some good in your trouble. This too I've seen that it's from the hand of God. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? That question is kind of haunting if you just let it hang. Who can eat or have enjoyment without him? It's like Solomon goes, of course. Of course. I was trying to find enjoyment without him. Bonehead? What was I thinking? Because without him, without it coming as a gift from him, all I have is the life under the sun. Just me and my stuff. And when God enters, well, he's always been there, but when we include that in our thinking and say, this comes from the hand of God, then God is the one who provides the meaning. And then the things that we have, sure, we can enjoy them. We can enjoy them. God's not threatened by you enjoying something. Don't you like it when your kids enjoy something? You like to see them enjoy something. Sometimes you get them things just to see them enjoy something. God does the same thing. He's not threatened by the fact that we enjoy things. But if we can remember, this came from the hand of God. This meal, this car, whatever it is, old, new, broken down, brand new, whatever, this is a gift. I don't deserve this. I'm not entitled to this. I have this as a gift. And you look around at the simple pleasures and you say, I'm not entitled to any of this. Lord, see, the spirit of the first half of this chapter is more, 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 more. And the spirit of the very end is like, it's enough. Do you feel the rest? Eating, drinking. having some good in the trouble. It's from God's hand, for who can eat or who can even have enjoyment without him? We can't. We can get a good mood without him. We can get a little temporary pleasure without him, but not enjoyment, not joy. That comes from his hand as a gift. So, there's that word, carpe diem. Well, it's two words. Seize the day. And there's a godly sense of seizing the day. If your basic needs are covered, we don't have any guarantees about the future. That's one of the things the book says. You can't bank on the fact that because you're living wisely that you're going to have a safe and secure future. That's just not how it works. So there's no guarantees for tomorrow. And the implication is what God has given you today. This is as life as going to get today. We have this funny little toast we do sometimes as a family. And Luke, my son-in-law, will go, to better times. And I know he's just joking. He's just joking. He tries to get at me. But you think about it, that's sort of our spirit. It's like we always want better times, better times. And the better toast would be, thank you for now. It's enough. You know, if you had only given me this family, it's enough. If you'd only given me this meal, Lord, it's enough. If all you did was come down and pay the price for my sin and solve my biggest problem, that would be enough, Lord. You've done enough. And we, in picturing the table, the eating and drinking, we bless you and we thank you. It is enough. You don't need to do anything more for us than what you have. It's not more. It's thank you. It's enough, Lord. The apostle will later call that the secret of contentment. I think he calls it a secret because most people never find it. The secret of it being enough. Maybe in your own heart right now, just think, what do I think has to happen before I can say it's enough? What is hanging out there that I think must be resolved